Lately I've been playing around with a photo processing program similar to Lightroom called Photo Ninja. This is the main window. It's by a company called Picture Code. These are the guys that also did the Noise Ninja noise reducing plugin for programs like Photoshop. So you can see this is the main window here. It's fairly simple. Unlike Lightroom, the histogram and all the information is on the left hand side. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of Lightroom or DxO Optics or quite a few of those other programs like Capture One, etc. But it does actually have a few tricks up its sleeve that they don't have. And one of the reasons I like it is because I find Lightroom quite bloated in the sense that it's also a database program, a management program. It sort of tags and manages all your photos, that sort of thing, which can be useful sometimes. But there are other times when I really simply just want to process one or two photos, and I don't want to have to go through the hassle of having Lightroom tag everything and favorite everything and have to upkeep the database. So this actually affords me that because I can just open single photos. Anyway, you can see down here the timeline or the folder where I have the photos. I've chosen this particular one because it's actually quite challenging. It's a photo that was taken in Hong Kong, and you can see it was a very overcast, cloudy day, shade, shadow, not very, there's plenty of detail in it because it was taken with a Nikon D5100, which does capture a lot of shadow detail, but in terms of the output, not very inspiring. So generally the first thing I do is when I go into these sorts of programs is I like to crop the photo first of all. It gives me, I can see what I'm working with when I do that. This one's quite expansive, and I actually generally like to use a square crop if I can. What I might do is just focus on these. I like the way this sort of shoots up into the sky and these lines. You can start the eye here and move up here, so I'll actually see what that looks like. I may change it later, but just for the purposes of this, I'm going to use a square. So you can see here there are various options. It tells me what lens I used. On this occasion I used a Tamron walk around 17 to 50mm lens, not a bad lens. But I can go in here, and the color correction panel actually is similar to the white balance, so I can use a dropper. It's similar to the white balance in Lightroom, I should say, but I can do it manually here and use a dropper, and here I'd choose a part of the photo which should be white or grey. I might click on an area of the sky here. There we go. See, that's actually warmed it up, so it's actually increased the temperature, and that's about what it would be. So just a little bit warmer than daylight. I can actually increase that myself a little bit more because it's quite cloudy. I want to bring a bit more warmth to the building here. I can increase or decrease the strength of it, and if I click here and keep my cursor on, I can actually see what it looked like before. So certainly much improved. So I click apply and I go out. Now the exposure and detail section, this is a very interesting part of the program, and I actually really in some ways prefer this over Lightroom. It's a bit more complex. It's actually given me something to work with already. As you can see, the illumination has been increased from the original raw file. So what illumination does, if I tooltip over it, what actually it does, it preserves the bright areas, and I can either compress or expand the dynamic range here, and you can see it in the histogram. If I move the slider down, you'll see the corresponding exposure slider moving up, and what the exposure slider does is it actually compresses highlights, but if I push the exposure up, it does what the exposure slider does in something like Lightroom. So it'll actually increase the contrast. You can see it increases the contrast of the photo here in these darker and lighter areas. But I actually like the way the illumination, you can see on the histogram up here, as I move the slider up, the highlights aren't being smashed against, they're not being smashed and blowing out. So it's actually preserving details in there whilst raising details in the shadow areas. And there you can see already, if I go to a before, there's before. That was the default setting in Photo Ninja, and here's after. I've just increased it a little bit more. The other nice thing in here is the detail slider. Now you don't want to overplay this too much. This is similar to the micro contrast detail plugin tool in Topaz plugins. And just look at the picture. If I just increase that to around 10, 11, you can see already. There we go. I'll do a before and after. If I zoom in, I can zoom in with the mouse wheel here. You can see a fair bit of noise, but there's also a fair bit of detail in the shadows. So if you look at the eaves here and the flower pots and everything, you'll actually see it's actually raising, it's actually drawing out some micro contrast information. So at the micro level, it's actually increasing the contrast between very small local areas of light and shade. And
to the human eye, that's actually increasing the detail. So if I do a before and after, this is after, here's before.
Okay, so the only issue there is it's actually, you can see it's actually also drawn out a lot of the noise. Apply that, and if I go into the Noise Ninja section, it's actually applied some already. What it's done is taken out already some of the color, the chromatic aberrations, the color noise rather. So if I zoom in again here, and I enable the luminance noise reduction. The luminous noise reduction, you'll see in these sort of areas, all these speckles, that's the noise. If I enable that, you'll see
it smooths that over. It looks better, but the smoothing algorithm
will actually reduce some detail here. So if I do a before and after, that's after, this is before. So, you know, a lot of this is personal preference. There's a blurring algorithm. Actually, if you look at this, it's not too bad, the default setting at keeping a lot of the detail. So if you see these lines right here, let's look at the before. It's actually retaining, even at default settings, a fair bit of information. So you know, I'm not unhappy with that. If I just zoom out of that, the way that looks now, it's certainly flattened things out, and that's quite nice. So I won't do anything else to that. I'll just apply it. The other neat thing in Photo Ninja that I really wish Lightroom had. Now, Lightroom does have it where you can actually separate the color channels. This gives you some presets to start with, but red, blue, green, yellow, those sorts of things. So you can actually go ahead and increase or decrease the lightness or saturation of each color in turn. But what Photo Ninja does have, it has a hue affinity. So what I can actually do is choose a color like this, or let's say I had some foliage in here. I could choose green, but instead of just increasing the saturation and lightness of this particular value, I could actually increase the hue affinity. So what it will start doing is looking for colors in the image that are similar to green, neighboring colors, neighboring hues. So it will actually increase or decrease the saturation of those according to these sliders, which means that it doesn't look so stark on the final image because the neighboring hue values are also being affected, and you can play with that. So what I'll do is I'll actually choose the green here just so we can see what it's doing. I'll actually increase it all the way, and if you look, it's actually chosen the greens here and really boosted them. I can take out the green entirely, or I can reset to default values. I can choose yellow, sort of warmer colors in the image. There we go. So what that's actually doing is, apart from this yellow area here, it's actually looking at the browns in the image, because I've increased the hue affinity to about a quarter of the way. So it's actually, you know, quite naturally increasing the hues of other warmer colors in the image, because it's actually quite a cold image. So I can further increase the warmth by doing this. If I really want to get strange, I can even shift the hue. So if you look, I can make it cool. I can move it towards the warmer colors like red. It can be quite unnatural like this. So I can shift the hues as well as increasing the lightness or saturation of them. I don't mind that. That's quite nice. So I'll just apply that. So I'll click this, and this is the after image. I will look at the before image. Okay, there's quite a big difference there. Just ignore the cropping. If you look at how difficult the exposure is on this and how washed out it is, and then compare it to what I've done, I've warmed up the image. I've increased the details in the shadow areas. I could even, you know, I could actually take those out a little more if I want. But from this program, from Photo Ninja, I might render the image to a TIFF file or a full size JPEG file, but usually TIFF. And then I might go into a program like Perfect Photo Suite 9 or Topaz or even Lightroom or any of the others, if I like some of the tools in there, and I could further work on it in there. So that's Photo Ninja. It's not a bad program. I'm actually getting into it. I really like the way the exposure works and the detail works. What I might do is just use the exposure sliders in here, again render to TIFF, and then take it into something like Nik Software, and because I really like the detail plugin in that. But it does give you some options. It's not overly expensive. I managed to get it at a 39% discount because I already owned Noise Ninja. But yes, quite a nice program.